Hey guys, this is Devin from Scooters Canada. I'm here today. I'm going to show you how to take wheel bearings in and out the quickest and easiest ways possible. So these are the tools you're going to need before we even start. We got our two wheels that we're going to swap the bearings out of. We got a 6mm Allen key, a 13mm wrench, a blunt-ended punch so you're not going to damage any parts. We got our hammer, and we have a very small front axle that is going to help you install these bearings. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to show you how to take the bearings out of these wheels. So either you guys have some sort of bench vise at home, this is the easiest way. If you guys don't have that, grab two scrap pieces of wood, something soft, throw them down on the bench like such, wide enough so the bearings can fall through out of the wheel. Set your wheel on it. You're going to take your punch and you're going to put it through the top bearing on an angle so it'll catch the other bearing on the opposite side. You want to feel it hit that lip. Once you feel it hit that lip, go ahead and give that a little tap with your hammer, and then you want to put it to the opposite side. Feel that lip again right there, give that another tap. Continue doing that until the bearing's out. So push it to this side till you feel the lip. Bearing out. You'll have your bearing and your spacer out of the wheel, one bearing still left. Flip that wheel around the opposite way so the bearing's pointed down, and follow the same way. You're going to want to hit the inner silver race right there with your bearing punch. Still starting at one side, tap, move to the opposite side, tap, and keep going back and forth. And there you go. Bearings out. If you guys have a bench vise, you're pretty much going to do the same thing, leaving the vise open enough so the bearings can fall through. Throw a rag on it so you don't scratch the wheel, and follow the same steps. Starting with your punch on an angle through the first bearing till you feel it hit the bearing on the bottom, like such, and start. Give that a tap. Move to the other side. Find the bearing on that side, give that a tap, and the bearing should fall out into your rag like such. Flip that wheel over so your bearing that's left in the wheel is now on the bottom, and you want to hit that inner silver race on the bearing. Set that down, give it a tap, one side to the other side, to the other side, and just keep doing that till the bearing falls out. No more bearings. Now we're going to go ahead and put these bearings back in. So there's two different ways of doing this as well. If you have a bench vise, that'll be the easiest way to do it. If not, you're going to use a really short scooter axle with a nut on the end. First step, we'll show you how to install it using the bench vise. So grab a little bit of grease, any kind of all-purpose grease, white lithium grease, anything like that. In this, we're using grease called Crazy Grease, multi-purpose and waterproof. It'll help slide those bearings in straight, so when the bearings get in, they'll stay fresh and spin fast even when you install them onto your scooter. Throw a little bit of grease on the race where the bearing's actually going to sit. So just like that, just a little bit on each side, like such. You take your first bearing, push it in with your thumbs till it holds itself in there like that. Go over to your vise and start pressing one bearing in. Nice and straight, nice and smooth. You got one bearing now in the wheel. Don't forget your bearing spacer. The spacers are key. When you go to tighten up your wheel without the spacer, you're going to crush your bearings and the bearings will not spin right. So throw your spacer in there. I'll usually even put a bit of grease on the spacer to act as a glue, just to help it stay straight. So there's your bearing spacer. Go ahead and push your other bearing in with your thumbs, just enough to hold it in there. And then you can go ahead and start pressing this one in on the opposite side. Press it in so it's just nice and snug. Pinch the inner silver parts on either side, pinch them with your hand, and you can go ahead and spin the wheel. Wheel should spin nice and smooth, nice and fast. So if you guys don't have a bench vise at home, I'm going to show you the easier way to do it using a simple front axle from a scooter. So you're going to need 2 washers, a nut, and your front scooter axle, your 2 wheel bearings, and your spacer that goes in between them. Take your axle, throw a washer down, so that way it sits on this bearing all the way around it. Throw your bearing on like such. Throw this through your wheel so that butts up just like that. Flip the wheel over this way. Grab your bearing spacer, which sits in between the 2 bearings in your wheel. You can slide that on. Take your other bearing, slide that on your axle as well. Throw the washer on the other side of the bearing, just so it faces the whole bearing, so it pushes it in nice and straight, so it stays fast and smooth when you got it on your build. Throw the nut on the other side, and that's when you take your 6mm Allen key into the bolt head and your 13mm wrench on the nut. Go ahead and start to tighten that nut up. As you tighten the nut, you'll see the bearings start pressing into the wheel itself. So keep tightening this until you feel them both go in. You'll feel it turn and then you'll feel it almost stop. That's how you know the bearings are in there and they're going to be in there nice and snug. Go ahead and undo that nut. You can undo this right off. And take the nut off, your washer off, slide your axle out of the wheel. So remaining is your 6mm Allen key, your washer, and then the short axle. And voila! Bearings in both sides. Go ahead and pinch the inner race, which is your inner silver line, your outer race being your outer silver line. You want to make sure you just pinch the ones in the center. Squeeze them and give that wheel a spin. Should spin nice and smooth, nice and fast. And there you go, guys. You're all set. Throw those wheels on the scooter and hit the ramps. Thanks for watching.